Hello and welcome to the Geek Cabal podcast, Cabal Whisperings. This is episode 4 on August 25th, 2023. And my name is Jim.
I'm Bob.
So what do we got on the agenda for today?
Well, for some opening notes, for those of you who are actually watching the video of this, you'll probably notice we're wearing the same exact clothes as we are in several other videos, because sometimes, due to our time, we have to record several videos in a row. So, sometime around when this video comes out, or podcast if you're only listening, on the video side, we're going to have a video, an unboxing old stuff video about one of the expansions to Warcraft 2.
So for you, those that are watching, it's the box here in the background. And the other one is just a kind of a brief overview of the Game Boy Micro. You'll see that we have other consoles out here, and that's just so that we do it kind of a comparison of the Game Boy Micro to the other models that were released around the same time. So
then earlier today, so definitely by the time this is posted, this will have already happened because it's already happened. Put up the video, Jim's unboxing of the Aquarius home computer by Mattel.
That one is very interesting. That was one that honestly I was gonna be like, this is just gonna be kind of boring, but I don't know. It was definitely a interesting unboxing and a very kind of cool look back to before I would have even been using a computer, because I mean that came out, like I said, in '83. So I would have been a year old when that came out. But yeah, just to take a look back at the computer specs of '83 versus what we have now, which is just night and day. I mean,
yeah.
Even though I believe that the Aquarius was still more powerful than what they had in the Apollo.
Probably. I mean, it wouldn't take much.
Though I don't know if it had more RAM than the Apollo, but the Apollo had hand-built RAM chips.
There we go. Let's see, some other stuff right around the time this should be popping up. I'm just about done with our video that Jim recorded walking through for Gen Con 2023. That's going to be a very long video. Not really any way to break it up. I don't want to break it up into pieces because it's it's two parts, but there's no point in splitting them. And Brad has sent me his thoughts on Gen Con 2023 because we released the podcast of our thoughts. So as soon as I get that edited, that will also be up. I think I've got one BattleTech video that we recorded that I haven't put up yet. And then I think that's it for the moment. Obviously, by the time this gets up, we'll probably have more stuff. But that right around the time this pops up, that's what you're looking at. But as far as new,
I say, if you didn't go to Gen Con, it may be worthwhile sitting through that entire video, because I definitely go up to about as many booths as I could. I mean, I think I may have said 90%, but I think I was at least 75% of the vendor hall recorded there. And it took me, I mean, it was 2.5 hours.
The two parts together, yeah, I believe were 2.5 hours.
And that is walking at a brisk pace too, to try to get through to film everything. And there is at least one moment in there where we had to mute audio because my son was getting a little annoyed with me doing all the recording. But I also told him that he's also a big kid and he can speak up at times, too. So
I do believe I caught the question, or at least the answer. So I'm assuming the question was, why doesn't Bob do any of this? So, because at least I caught the answer, so I'm assuming that was the question. Because for those who don't know, you're not. If you're watching this, and you can see my phone, it's not the greatest phone for recording video. Is why Jim's is far better. Mine, I can record the video, but the shot's gonna suck. So, audio I can do though. So might be some podcasting in the car here in the very near future. But anyway. That's what's going to be coming out around the same time as this video, and we're going to start moving over some of our stuff in the video format into the podcasting side, because we recorded a new blurb to put at the front, so I can take out the existing intro, so it just kind of goes straight into the action. Again, it's going to be ones that are single topic predominantly, and ones that have decent audio. So we'll see how that goes. So anyway, on to our topics. So for movies, I didn't know where to put these because I'm one of those fools that still has cable, and that's where I watch these movies. They're not new movies. I'm sure they're on streaming somewhere, but that's not where I watch them. So I didn't want to put them with streaming, so I'm going to put them here in the movies. I am kind of a Western fan, and it was kind of amazing. I had not seen one of these movies. The other one's kind of newer, so understandable. But anyway, over the last weekend, I watched Unforgiven for the first time. I'd seen parts of it before, but uh, it is if you've not seen it, and you're a Western fan, or just if you want to watch a good movie, it's excellent. It's Clint Eastwood and Morgan Freeman and Gene Hackman, like all kind of like pinnacle performance type stuff here. Briefly, the main plot is that Gene Hackman's the sheriff in this town, and kind of a bully, but I really got the impression that he was just really wanting to be the sheriff. Like he's building his house out the edge of town. It's obvious he's a shit carpenter, though, and everyone's just kind of too afraid to tell him that. Then a couple of the working ladies have an issue. One of them gets all cut up by one of their customers, and they want vengeance. And Gene Hackman's like, well, I don't know. It just kind of got out of hand. You know, boys will be boys kind of answer. And then the guy that runs the saloon, like, he gets promised some horses in return. And they're just kind of like, well, wait, so he's going to get some horses. These guys aren't even going to get punished at all. And what? She's just screwed now that her face is all chopped up? They're like, what the hell's this? So they get some money together to hire a bounty hunter to kill the two guys that did this. And this young kid comes and finds Clint Eastwood, who he knows him because his uncle knew him. He's a notorious gunfighter, thief, you name it, he's done it on the not so great side. And his wife has just passed away like a couple years back. He's got two kids. He needs the money, and so he goes and gets Morgan Freeman, who's his former partner, and they go to do the deed. And it's a whole lot of like, what would happen if his character from the Dollars trilogy was more on the darker side and then had survived into old age, you know? So it's a guy that knows what it takes to kill another man and knows how god awful it really is. And Morgan Freeman's like along for the ride, and the kid, he's bluffing his way through, and it's just really great acting from everyone all the way across. You know, even if you don't like westerns, you probably like this one. So, Jim, have you by any chance ever seen that movie? Do you like westerns at all?
Um, I don't normally navigate to watch them, but I mean I'm over at my parents' house. A lot of times they'll be watching a Western movie,
Is
and
is your dad more of a Clint Eastwood or a John Wayne fan? Because I've noticed Western fans, at least from what I see, tend to fall one way or the other.
that I don't know. I mean, I honestly I don't even really realize half the stuff he's watching. I'm just like, oh, this is kind of cool. That's one thing I did notice with westerns. A lot of times you could just come in at any point and just kind of sit in on them and
They're they do tend to be very slow, and they're very. I hate to say they're all very formulaic, but like revenge is the plot to 90% of the westerns out there. So once you know the players, like you know how it's going to go. Uh,
what is that one? I'm trying to think of because I know there's the Mel Gibson one, or Maverick,
yeah,
and then there's one I want to say it's Tom Selleck.
Tom Selleck. That's Quigley Down Under,
Yes.
which was basically just a glorified advertisement for the Quigley rifle, but it is good, and you get to see Alan Rickman as a cowboy paying off the line from Die Hard, where McClane tells him, "Oh, you wouldn't have made a bad cowboy yourself, Hans," and like it's like another like two or three roles later, he plays a cowboy essentially. But yeah, that one's good. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I remember it being good. Now, I personally, I'm a much bigger fan of Eastwood. I haven't seen many of the John Wayne movies, but I prefer the more John Wayne. His characters were morally upstanding, okay, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. But given the topic of a lot of westerns, I think Eastwood's closer to the what it would really be. He'll shoot someone in the back. If they've got it coming, he doesn't care. And his characters in general, even in like the good, the bad, and the ugly, like the pinnacle Western movie, even though he's the good guy, he's still doing some morally dubious things throughout the movie. And I do particularly like how Sergio Leone, the director, described the movie. Three bums work their way through the Civil War towards a treasure, and so it's him, Lee Van Cleef's character, and Eli. I don't know if it's Wallach or Wallach. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but yeah, it's the three of them working their way through the Civil War, and it doesn't pull any punches on how horrible the Civil War was, by the way. But it's a good Western too.
Well, that's it. About reminds me of the Alamo. I can't think what the movie was called that did that. And I don't think they pulled any punches. They pretty much showed that everyone was massacred. And
Was that probably the more recent one with I know Dennis Quaid to be one of the characters, I think, and maybe Billy Bob Thornton. I haven't seen it. I'm just going off of trailers that I've seen.
no, I say so when it's come to more recent Western movies, and I'm doing quotes on that. It's been stuff that's just
Are you gonna bring up Cowboys versus Aliens?
I've seen that one.
I actually think that's an okay movie. Just to be clear.
Nah, I just no, they're definitely not westerns. I mean, I guess technically Wild Wild West would be considered a western, but
Well, I mean, it is. It's a steampunk western, but it's like No Country for Old Men is essentially a modern day western.
and, stuff like City Slickers and the Three Amigos.
The Three Amigos definitely is. City Slickers, I could see the argument. I'm sure Jack Palance is in a number of other westerns anyway.
Young Guns and
Yeah, Young Guns 1 and 2. Let's see, on the more recent end, you got like the remake of 310 to Yuma. I've never seen the original, but I did like the remake. It's a remake of a John Wayne movie. I guess I should watch the original because I like the True Grit. If you haven't ever seen that, it's really good. Chad tells me the original's better, though. He's more of a John Wayne fan.
Who's Chad? Chad, we miss you. Come back.
Come back. But yeah,
oh, and Brad, we miss you too, Brad. So.
And we're working on getting you back. So yeah, I did mention The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It's actually not my favorite of the Eastwood westerns. My favorite's actually Pale Rider. But The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is really good. Pale Rider was a little bit later. It's like in the 80s. It's a different tone for things, and just overall, I like it. For you James Bond fans, the guy that plays Jaws is a henchman in that movie. Richard Kiel, I believe is his name. I believe my uncle has a movie poster signed by him for Pale Rider, if I remember right. So, yeah, anyway, moving on to the other Western that I watched. The remake of The Magnificent Seven. This is really recent, like last 5-6 years. Denzel Washington's the main character. I believe he's the Yul Brynner character from the original. Chris Pratt is in it. Vincent D'Onofrio, Ethan Hawke, and I'm sure I'm forgetting other people. But yeah, I thought it was entertaining. I've not seen the original. I've started watching it one day, but I didn't get very far into it. And it's funny, this is a remake, because the original is actually a reimagining of The Seven Samurai, an Akira Kurosawa film. So, which I have also not seen, just to be clear. My film snob credit only goes so far. But no, it's pretty good. It presented a plausible reason for there to be the diverse cast there is, and that was nice. They ended up with a native guy on their team, an Asian guy, the guy that played Storm Shadow, actually. I don't know that guy's name, but he's in it. And it's an interesting group of individuals. Denzel's the leader of the group. He's a black guy. Didn't bat an eye whenever they're trying to train the town. The one guy asks him, so how many of you fought in the War of Northern Aggression? So you can tell which side he fought on. And him and Denzel get along just fine. So yeah. But as far as I know, the plot's the same as the original. Town is besieged by a wealthy landowner, and they hire these guys to come in and clean house. And yeah, it's pretty good. Well acted. A lot of action. It's a modern movie, so we got we've got Gatling guns and dynamite explosions, and we've got as much action as you can jam pack into a movie that takes place in like 1890.
Yet another trope in movies that just sometimes will sacrifice good storytelling in the for that. Well, it's too slow paced. Like people are just talking.
Well, a lot of the movie is not super fast paced. It's
Yeah.
mainly the big action. It's the big final battle at the end. Okay, a lot of it is slow, like most other westerns. It's just that it came to that point. It's like, well, all right, this is 20 whatever. Like, let's throw some pizzazz into this. Didn't see the Gatling gun jam, which statistically should have happened at some point. Also, interesting side note, for those of you who have figured out that we live in the state of Indiana, a gentleman from Indianapolis invented the Gatling gun. It's called the Gatling gun because his name was Dr. Gatling. So,
Well, that's like the one news article I came across. I don't know how accurate it is, but where somebody had bought a minigun from a helicopter in Florida.
I don't think it's from a helicopter. I think it's from an A-10 Warthog, wasn't it?
Maybe. Yeah, because it was it was right. You're right, because it was the pod that goes up into the nose cone. I'm like,
Yeah.
I,
I'm sure you can buy them decommissioned. So, or maybe not.
well, I know the Gatling guns, like the original hand crank ones, you can purchase them because they're old enough.
Right, because it's okay, not at all a lawyer. Don't take anything I'm about to say as legal advice in any way, shape, or form, and I could be mistaken. But to my understanding, the way it works is it's not technically a fully automatic weapon if you have to be able to pull the trigger once and multiple bullets emerge in a succession. A Gatling gun doesn't work that way. It's one hammer pull fires one bullet. It's just the other barrels are all loaded, so as it rotates, it boom, 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 boom. It can fire as fast as a machine gun, but it's mechanically it is not a machine gun as it's understood per the law. Given my understanding of things.
But and this is me going off of what I've seen on Pawn Stars, so take that with what you will. Is that guns of a certain age do not fall under the I think if they're over a century old that it's
The NFA.
yeah,
I do wonder what's going to happen in the very
because
a Maxim machine gun would already fall into that then, so I kind of wonder about that because that is a machine gun. That is a little bit of firearm history here for you folks. The Maxim machine gun is the basis, the mechanisms for how it works is the basis for all automatic weapons and most semi-automatic weapons. As far as the one trigger pull fires a bullet and sets the rest of the gun into motion to eject the cartridge and bring the next one in and everything and reset the hammer and all that. That's also invented by an American, Hiram Maxim. He was paid by Edison to go to Europe because he was a self-taught man and was inventing things, and Edison paid him because he wanted to he wanted to monopolize the genius market, and he moved to Europe, met a friend of his over there one day, and showed him some inventions he'd come up with, and his friend was like, yeah, these are all great, but you really want to make money over here. Give the Europeans a better way to kill each other. And that's what he did. So,
yeah, there was one firearm they sold on Pawn Stars that just cracked me up. It was a desk gun. It was a desk with a built-in gun that would shoot out the front.
Yeah. Like you see in a movie, like with a gun right under. Yeah.
Well, it had like just like a thing that would flip down and.
Oh, well, that's different. Okay.
And it just it would just have like you would shoot the person in front of you. Like I guess it would be like if somebody was trying to rob you and they were standing in front of you. Just.
All right.
I have no idea what it was used for because they were like, what would this eat? Because that was the whole thing of the episode. Now I understand that Pawn Stars is all just none of it's real. I mean, people do come in and show stuff, but they have to meet with them ahead of time, and they think it's worth recording. Then then they'll set the whole thing up.
Oh, come on, Jamie! You're trying to tell me that it's like those where they find the storage buildings full of stuff. You're trying to tell me that that's not all accurate.
Sometimes it is, though. I have bought a storage unit before.
Oh, I know people do buy them, but I meant the whole like, oh, what's in here? Like, as far as I'm aware, that part's completely rigged. Like, they only do that with the ones that have stuff in them worthwhile.
Though I did learn another thing about the magic of television, that the cash cab doesn't actually hand out real cash.
Really?
No, they pay them later.
Okay. Wow. That seems like that's false advertising of some kind. You've shattered my visions
No,
of the
that
cash cab.
no, I mean that's why he like just randomly has the exact amount of money. It's not like he's sitting there counting it while he's driving. It's just a handful of cash
Yeah.
that they say, oh yeah, this is your money, and then
And
it's
then the van that's following them pays them probably.
or because they have to do taxes and all that stuff because they can't just hand them cash and let them go.
I would think it would depend on the amount, but also I suppose it depends on where they are. Because I know here in Indiana it's a high amount for you to pay taxes on it. Because I don't because from having been to Las Vegas, it's a set dollar number, and I don't remember what it is, but if you pay attention to a lot of the machines, they pay out like 1 cent below that, so they can avoid the taxes on it and everything. So even though if you win twice, you're supposed to it's cumulative. But anyway, that's
So
what they told me anyway.
so as far as movies, I haven't watched any movies. The only thing I was watching was another YouTube channel that I was streaming, and they were doing the volume one of Youngblood.
And whose channel is that and everything?
That
Go
is
ahead,
that is
tell 'em.
atop the fourth wall. Um, so yeah, that was a Liefeld at his greatest or lack thereof.
Hey, like I said last time, Liefeld's got talent. He can draw better than I can, and the man's made a fortune doing
Well,
what he does. So
he draws people with barrel chest. There's that one notorious Captain America that he did.
have you ever seen the one where one person actually did the cutaway and showed like what the skeletal structure and everything would have to look like? it's it's not pretty.
uh, but yeah, so there was a that was interesting because in I guess in the at least in the first volume or whatever that he reviewed, there was at least one moment where Spawn was, you know, fighting against a member of, and yeah, that brought up another one of the comics is not for kids kind of moments because um, so there's a character named Chapel, and Chapel I guess is it Jason Wynn? That's the guy that I believe that sent
Okay,
that
so based on the movie, because I've not read the comic,
yeah.
and I believe the HBO cartoon backs this up, so I'm assuming this is the plot. Jason Wynn is the guy that what is his name? What's Spawn's actual name?
Well, when
Uh,
Spawn was he was a mercenary or
yeah,
something.
the man that became Spawn. I can't think of his name, but he worked for Jason Wynn and was basically set up because Jason Wynn is also working for uh, the Violator in Malbolgia. Unknowingly, didn't know that he was doing all that to create Spawn to lead the armies of hell.
So this moment is just like because one is and the guy he brings it up and they casually just throw it off that Jason Wynn purposely infected the people with a dormant form of HIV, and Chapel, the character that Spawn was trying to like discourage him from doing what he was getting ready to do. He said, Chapel told Spawn, he goes, "Well, you came back from the dead." He's like, "I can do the same," and because he was so whatever about him being infected with HIV, goes and offs himself so he can be resurrected by Malbosia.
Did it work
Well,
out for him?
yes.
Well,
Um, but then people are like, wait a minute. So you're talking this guy. This is the like in the comics they had him listed as like a womanizer.
I mean, he could have gotten some other way.
No, he purposely says that Jason Wynn affected him with a dormant gene or dormant version of HIV that he could like turn on at any point. So the big controversy is that people that are actually suffering from this, they're pretty much saying, yeah, that that it's an okay just to off yourself because that you've got this disease or whatever, and it's
Yeah, unfortunately, comics don't handle certain nuanced topics very
No,
well.
this was a very bad handling of it, and I 100% agree that it's not the way that
Because
it should.
I think DC had something similar happen with Superboy, because Superboy was created by Lex Luthor. It's a combination of Superman and Luthor's DNA to create Superboy, and like something was going wrong, and he was just like falling apart. And so during Final Crisis or Infinite Crisis, one of the crises, I believe it's Infinite Crisis. Uh, he fixes him, and like the team was like trying to do something, to fix him, and like then you got, I think it's uh, who's the Green Arrow? Is it Speedy? Is that his name?
Yes, we already became a junkie.
Yeah, I think he was infected with HIV, and he's just like, "Well, I'm glad you fixed Superboy. They will find a fix for me." And they're like, "It's okay, Speedy. We'll help you somehow." And it's like, they're not going to, because there is no actual cure for that. Even though in the comics there probably is. Like, meanwhile, old Connor Kent over here is a hybrid clone of a human and alien, and Lex Luthor figures out how to fix him. You know, So yeah, it's one of those like, well, yeah, like realistically, Speedy'd probably be sitting over there like, gee, thanks. Lex, could you have fixed me too, maybe? You know, but like in the real world, it's like neither of these, well, in the real world, neither of these two would have been fixed at all. Connor Kent would have fallen apart because, human and alien DNA probably just don't mix at all. But
No,
yeah, now they try, and like God love them, like they mean well, I think, but
yeah, but you get moments like that in comics, and you're just like, I understand them trying to be edgy to a point, like you can be, because there's a few moments where it's like,
oh, edgy. That's like Spider-Man Reign, where you find out that it's not just Spider-Man's blood that's radioactive, it's all of his other fluids. He gives Mary Jane cancer. I'll let you folks figure out how. Use your imagination.
well, there's uh, I think it was a Family Guy episode where supposedly like all the women in the Daily Planet all get like cancer in their
From the X-ray vision.
from the X-ray vision. um, but no, because I mean there are some edgy there's like the definite hey kids comics scenes where like but some of them are okay because I mean obviously like when the Sentry tears Ares in half.
I was
um
thinking more whenever Nova kills Annihilus by punching down his throat, grabbing and pulling, and ripping his insides out. What's really great about that, though, is there's a later comic where Annihilus is back, right? And he's
yeah.
talking to Nova, and he's like, "Ah, yes, the Nova Corps. One of your members did take me out. I remember it." And Nova's like, "Yeah, me." Like, no, it couldn't have been you. You're a weakling. Like, it would have never been you. And he's like, "It was me, jackass. I'm the one that killed you." He's like, "No, you've been hit in the head too many times." And they had to get to the Mr. Fantastic for something, and they're like, well, the kids are the only ones here, and it's like, I'll deal with them. I'm great with children. And Nova's like, I don't know about this, but all right. He was not great with children. Yeah, there's a couple issues right there, because that's also right before Thanos got killed by Drax, when he punched through his back, punched his hand through his chest, and had his heart in his hand when he punched through, doing his best impression of Molaram from the Temple of Doom.
But through the back.
Yeah, and with the victim being relieved because he wanted to die, so he could be with death. He was very pissed off at Nova and Star Lord, and they brought him back to life.
Though comic book Thanos doesn't deserve that kind of an ending, though.
Yeah, yeah. This is well before he defeated Galactus and becomes king of the universe and grows a Moses beard.
And has Hulk as a pet,
Yeah, I think so.
and then also has a
Cosmic Ghost Rider,
yes.
who's Frank Castle, for those of you that don't know. Yeah. But yeah, you get that in comics.
But no, that's about all I've been watching, is because that was 3 hours worth of content,
Yeah.
and makes me wonder if he ever did volume two.
So on the book front, about the only thing I've got to report is I'm still working my way through Hour of the Wolf for BattleTech. I am taking notes for the eventual review. I'm debating on how much of the next like 100 pages I'm actually going to read, not just skim, because a lot of it is the battle between Clan Wolf and Clan Jade Falcon, taking place in Canada. Uh, Amazingly, could have been any place on the planet, but the last chunk of the book here is entirely in North America after the Republic surrendered in Detroit. So I know that I know who wins the battle. So, and of the people that I care about in the book, I know who survives and who doesn't. So I'm probably just going to skim it because I can only read so many times about cerulean lasers melting armor plates and fusion reactors and gyros being hit. Like, Blaine Lee Pardo is a good author, but I don't know if I can handle 100 more pages of that. So, like, I'm probably just going to skim to the end to make sure no one else I care about dies or that no one else important pops up. And then read the last few chapters because they are important. So, when I get to the review, I'll let you know how that went. Jim, anything on the book front for you?
No, I don't have time to read. I don't know how to read.
So then on the gaming front, I have had the chance to play Rivals for Catan a couple times. I picked it up at Gen Con. It's a two-player card-based version of Settlers of Catan. I do like how it plays. It is very quick compared to Settlers of Catan, especially like if you're just going for it. And it is actually hard to not attack your opponent. If you're trying to be like, well, we'll just see who's the better builder here. Like, cards come up that like you have to attack, and there's only one other player, so who are you gonna attack? Uh, so look for a review for that soon, because I've mainly played the beginner version. I want to play the other so I can have a better understanding, because it adds some more rules, more complexity. I want to do that at least once before I do the review. So, but otherwise, but keep an eye out for that in the future. The BattleTech Mercenaries Kickstarter pledge manager is not going to close at the end of August. It's been pushed back again. They figured out how to. There was one thing people were wanting to be able to do, and they've finally figured out how to do it. So they want to give people time to do it. They have not listed a new date. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that they're going to make one other change, but we'll see. There's production videos out there, so the factories are already churning out the pieces. So this might actually hit whenever it's supposed to in, I think, June of next year. There have been some developments in the Great Card Heist from Gen Con 2023. Persons of interest, since we are broadcasting this and whatnot, I have to say things like that, who are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, have been identified. They apparently own a game company, and if I remember, I'll leave a link in the description to their game, because right now on the forum on Board Game Geek for their game, this is all the people are talking about, and the game has rocketed to #1 on the hotness scale because of all this activity. But the two individuals, as of from what I've read, again, not a lawyer, and this is just what I came across. So, allegedly, supposedly, all that fun, I'm not saying anything definitive here. Their lawyers are apparently trying to negotiate some kind of way for them to come back to Indianapolis, potentially to surrender. Don't know how it's going to go. But yeah, apparently it turns out that it's not the best idea in the world, if you're going to do something like this or be caught in the vicinity of something like this, to be wearing a shirt advertising your game on the back of it and look like the guy that created the game. So that leads me to believe that if in fact they are the culprits, that it was a crime of opportunity and not a crime that was planned out, or if it was exceptionally poorly planned, or this is all the lead up to a dynamite game on Kickstarter. We'll see. Probably not, given that the police are involved, but hey, you never know. Yeah. Jim, any thoughts on any of that?
No, I was going to say the forum on that was very interesting to look at. Just people were like, man, this. I don't know. It's just you got a lot of traction, a lot of people talking about it. So that was an interesting read. to go through. So
Yeah, I did see some people that questioned how, because the area, regardless of who it was, the area should have been crawling with like union workers and uh, people for the convention center, and so it's odd that they would be able to just slip in, grab something, and leave.
well, and I think they were probably bringing stuff in, and then they probably just grabbed something and rolled it back out like it was
Well,
theirs.
that's possible. It's possible that one of them, because the guy has a game, it's the guy that's possibly the culprit. Uh, so he might have had a vendor badge, and maybe that's why no one batted an eye at it.
Yeah, because you just, all you'd have to do is be like, oh, I'm just, I brought some stuff in. Oh, it's too much stuff, so we're gonna leave this out in the truck because I don't have any place to put it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what's led to some speculation online that it was an inside job of some kind because there had to have been a level of planning. But then we get back to the whole like that you're wearing your shirt for your game. That'd be like one of us wearing a Geek Cabal shirt while committing some kind of stupid crime
We'll rob a bank, and we're like,
and like streaming it or something.
we're going live in this bank robbery. What?
How many of you have seen Point Break? Today I'll be playing President Reagan. That's the original Point Break, by the way. I haven't watched the new one.
Well, there was a movie where somebody's like, we want to all have Michael Myers mask, and they instead it was like, Michael Myers,
Mike Myers, the actor.
They're like, what the hell? It's like Austin Powers or something. And he's like, well, you said Mike Myers.
Oh, that. Have you ever seen Reservoir Dogs?
Parts of it, yeah.
It sounds like the conversation they have at one point where they're passing out the code names, and Steve Buscemi's character is Mr. Pink, and he's like, "Why the hell am I Mr. Pink?" And Harvey Keitel's like, well, don't worry about it, because I think he's Mr. White, if I remember right. And he's like, well, what do you? Well, I know why you don't care, Mr. White. That's a cool name. He's like, why don't I be like Mr. Brown? It wasn't Brown. I don't remember what color it was. But the old guy in charge is like, you can't be him. He's on another job. And it's like, well, I don't want to be pink. Like, it sounds like I'm some kind of a sissy or something. It's like, look, there's only so many colors to go around. You're pink. Get over it. Yeah, just conversations like that. That movie is great for things like that. Because in like the planning for crimes of that magnitude, like that those conversations happen when you get a bunch of hard asses together and something like that goes down. That kind of conversation has to happen. Because no one there is going to be Mr. I think purple was the color he wanted.
Yeah.
He's like, look, it's regal, it's okay, and he's like, no, you can't be purple. Purple's on another job, But yeah, that's about it on the gaming front. Hopefully we'll be able to actually play some other stuff that we picked up at Gen Con, and we'll do some reviews and whatnot for that. Because I know you guys want to get through the Alien game before you do anything on it.
So. Well, yeah, so we need to play that one as a multiplayer, because Owen's been playing it as a single-player experience.
Oh,
so
okay, well.
You can play it as a single player, but the problem is that with the mechanics of that game.
Yeah, you told me like it's easier to dodge the alien.
Yeah, because you're on one side and the alien can only move as you're moving around versus when you have a whole crew of people, every time a crew member moves, the alien can move. So the alien becomes way more mobile.
Yeah, have you ever played Pandemic?
No.
Oh, we definitely need to play that sometime. Angela and I kind of ran into a similar problem. Like every time a character does after every person's turn, the game does something. You're playing against the game, and so we were testing. We never could figure out if it was advantageous to have fewer players because the game's not screwing you with each turn, versus the number of actions you have to work with. We just didn't have enough. We didn't have other people. We just had us. We even tried optimizing like certain characters because different characters can do different things. But yeah, we gotta play that game sometime.
Yeah, I just want to wait till I have Owen here to do some of the reviews because because some of the games I picked up were definitely ones that for me and Owen to play, and then one for me, Owen, and my younger son to play. Because he definitely, my youngest one definitely is not one that likes to lose, so we definitely try to find a game that was a co-op dungeon crawler type game, so that instead of us competing against each other, we're actually competing with each other to try to make it through. So
Right.
Interested to see how that one looks. Kind of interesting one about that is that was formerly Rather Dashing Games product
Oh,
called
now it's Catalyst.
called Waking Layer, but yeah, now it's Catalyst Games. Um, but the neat thing about that game and a few others that I had bought from Rather Dashing at the time was that Grant Wilson from Ghost Hunters was the artist on all of that. So I do have a few different games that were signed by Grant Wilson because he did the artwork on it.
Now they're the ones that did the what is it? Ninja, Pirate, Robot,
Zombies.
Zombie.
Yep. And there's We Come in Peace, which was more of a kind of a lot more kid type friendly games.
I was gonna say the main thing I took from that game was the definition of the word orthogonal. We actually had to look it up if I recall correctly.
Yep. And then there's one that we haven't played yet because I honestly find it intimidating. So a lot of times, like if I'm doing that, I'll get Bobby over to, hey, let's look at this and see if you can help me understand the rules because I don't play as many board games. So and that's Dwarven Minor because it's got lots of pieces to it. So I usually rather have somebody else to help me read the rules through on that.
I had a dwarf game last year at Gen Con. It was in like some stupid low clearance. I was like, sure, why not? Expansions, throw them in. Still haven't opened it yet.
Yeah,
that happens at Gen Con. I
well,
get drunk on buying stuff and like, a deal. Like my friend Chris, it's way worse with him. Like you tell him like, hey, this thing's $30, but if you buy 2 of them, it's only 25 each. Like the more things you can throw in there, like the greater chance he's going to buy it. And so, yeah, he'd spent like, I don't know, $250, $260 at the Teespring booth. I mean, I'm not one to say anything. I spent like $200 some odd at a t-shirt booth too. So, but yeah. So streaming.
I said I did my streaming. I was YouTube channels, YouTube shows.
Well, I was gonna say the big news this week was the Ahsoka premiere, which we've done a review on the first 2 episodes. I want to check those out. They're on the single topic podcasting side.
Like I said, there is comments on that. So we gave our initial reviews, and for the most part, they were positive. I mean, and I do, then after we did our review, we kind of went back and started. I noticed a lot of websites they're really bashing it, but then I realized the reason they're bashing it is because they're like, well, if you didn't watch, Rebels or whatever, this is heavily dependent on you watching Rebels. And I'm like, I didn't feel that to be the case. I feel like you need to have an idea of Rebels.
Yeah, I think as long as you had a rough idea, because I watched like maybe half of Rebels.
That's about where I got to. Heck, I don't even think I got to where Admiral Thrawn really came into the picture.
Thrawn was in it in some of what I watched, but not a lot.
I got to where they stole the Hainer ship, the Imperial one, the Imperial ship, because that was used to haul TIE fighters around.
Oh, the carrier?
Yes, yes. I'm not throwing crap around. Yes, that's about to where I got. But it was enough that I had a general idea of... But even then, I don't think it was super heavy reliant on you knowing it. Because they mentioned Lothal. You see the... And I guess the end scene of Episode 2 was a complete recreation of the last scene of Rebels.
Huh. All right. But no, like we had one big question, which was Sabine training to be a Jedi in the show that we just totally missed? And I looked around online, one of the forums I go to, and the first post was asking that, and everyone else is like, no, that just kind of came out of nowhere. Like Ezra gave her his lightsaber apparently, but the whole like training to be a Jedi thing, like that must have happened in the interim. That was not in Rebels. So. No, some of the complaints I saw was that Sabine, who has to now probably be in her 30s, is still acting like a teenager. And they're just like, that's just unrealistic. And I'm just like, you haven't met enough people, apparently.
But I think she's also still dealing with the loss of Ezra.
Yeah, the loss of Ezra, the fact things didn't work for her training. Like, I mean, there's reasons why, But again, like,
I'm not saying...
have you folks met 30-year-olds at the moment?
And like, I'm hoping that she has some sort of redemption because, yes, I was on the same boat that like I thought she was kind of annoying, I mean, and she was also very predictable. Like every scene that she was in, you kind of knew exactly what she was going to do
Yeah.
because it's like, oh, I'm going to leave you as this thing that I told you not to take out of the ship, and then they go off, and obviously the
Yeah.
exact thing that you know is going to happen happens, and she rebels, and she has to guess. I guess she's just a rebel through and through, where she's always rebelling.
Needs to be like that one, the one goth kid on South Park. I don't remember what the kids are putting together a group for, but they keep going around. They finally get to the goth kids, and the first three are like, "No, we're not gonna be like that. We're not conformists." The last guy's like, "I'm not a conformist either. I'm gonna join him." And they're like, "Damn, that is non-conformist," because he was so non-conformist, he wasn't even conform with them. He was gonna do the opposite of what they were doing.
So
But yeah, no, it's got a handful of little issues like that, and of course, it's a follow up to a show. So yeah, you probably should have seen some episodes of the show. That's like, oh man, I'm lost here in The Empire Strikes Back because I didn't watch A New Hope. Well, that's your own damn fault. It's the next number in the series. Like they media cannot just dedicate a quarter of its runtime to telling you what you missed in the last thing. Like those days are gone
well,
if they
that's
were ever here.
good example. We just did. I mean, we did a review on this on the channel, The Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
That all is about an episode in the original series.
Yeah, from 15 years beforehand in real time. It just kind of assumes that you saw that episode, or but it's made in such a way that even if you didn't, you can figure out what the hell's going on. And I don't think there was anything in Rebels that's like, oh man, I missed Rebels, so I don't know what's going on. I was like, no, it's the rebellion. They're fighting against what's left of the Empire. Like you get the big picture things. The other things will probably explain themselves as we go along.
And I realize that people watching this are like, God damn spoilers. I'm trying to keep it. I mean, obviously Thrawn was mentioned in the trailers.
Yeah, and we've seen Thrawn in the trailers. I'm just really concerned that given the limited number of episodes, that it's going to be like the last 5 minutes of the last episode, Thrawn pops up and it's like, see you in season 2, suckers.
I'm fine if there is a season 2, but Thrawn has to be a threat, and I don't want the Moff Gideon treatment where Thrawn gets captured or something and escapes. I mean, I think it should end. Honestly, it should end in a defeat by Thrawn. That Thrawn has reclaimed his throne, and then that leads into season 2 of whatever that happens. But again, that's all speculation. But the no, I mean, everything that they kind of laid out there, I think you could easily follow because they mentioned, oh, they're looking for this person. He's the heir to the Empire, which is fan service. And if you've watched any of the Star Wars movies, you kind of go, oh yeah, the Empire, that thing.
Those guys controlled the galaxy for 40 years, of course.
I don't see that there's anything that's saying that, and again, it's the beginning of the episodes. It's not going to be like a movie where they have, a whole story arc there. They're leading up to something.
I think it'd be interesting, the people who make these complaints, if we were to go back and see how they handled WandaVision. That show that took the entire season to explain what in the holy hell was going on in that show. And if you just watch the first episode, you'd be like, what is this?
Hey, that's a great segue into one of our other topics that we've got there.
It is. So we're going to jump to that one. We'll come back to the other one I have here listed. So it would appear that the Agatha Harkness spinoff has 9 episodes, which puts it about midway, because I think Secret Invasion had 6, right? Or did it have 9?
I don't think it had that many.
It's the same number that WandaVision had. It's from what the article said. I'd have to go back and double check that because I don't think it's accurate. But so it has 9. However, the new Daredevil series supposedly has 18 episodes, which is above and beyond any of the other Disney Plus shows, by far.
And I think there's 2 reasons to that. One is it's not a CGI laden affair, so it's easier.
It really shouldn't be anyway.
And 2, they're probably taking a note from the Netflix show and saying, hey, we've got some ideas for stories and how it should kind of be laid out.
Well, I'm kind of hoping that it just goes with the Netflix show being canon and just going, you know.
Well, it should be canon. I mean, it
Because
was.
well, I mean, we've got the same actors, you know,
I,
and they know each other, so
I'm
like,
telling you, on the No Way Home scene, or was it? It was No Way Home, wasn't it?
yeah,
It had had Daredevil in it, catching the brick through the window. God, that was one of those movies that just.
yeah. I was reading something that was talking about that they might try to bring Jennifer Garner and Ben Affleck back for something, for some more multiversal crap, but as Daredevil and Elektra. So could be interesting if they do. I kind of hope they do. You know,
Yeah, I mean, while the Elektra movie was
the Elektra movie wasn't great, but the Daredevil movie was all right.
and I don't blame the Daredevil movie for some it's kind of lesser quality. It was I think they were still trying to get their footing on what works for a superhero movie. I mean, that was really before the MCU, and honestly, Daredevil is a very weird IP to try to make mainstream in a movie. Like Blade was too, but I think they did Blade because they're like nobody cares about Blade. We'll say if it fails, it'll be fine. And then
Well, for whatever it's worth, Marv Wolfman really cared, as I believe he's the creator. He apparently was quite upset that like he wasn't getting a check over that, and he definitely made a stir. So,
but you know what I mean, though. I mean,
yeah,
the
no,
studio,
I know,
the
I know what you're
studio,
saying.
the studio was like,
it'd be like if the MCU had started off with the Guardians of the Galaxy and it flopped. Everyone'd be like, who cares? No one knows who the Guardians of the Galaxy is.
but when Blade was a success, again, you said vampires. It was the time for it was the time when
Yep, late '90s, early 2000s, the tech boom,
economy was doing great. Blade came in, did good things.
and then everything busted. Resident Evil and the remake of Dawn of the Dead, and 28 days later ushered in the zombie craze.
I mean, for the fact that Blade 3 even I think was considered a success, even though it was by far the worst of movies.
It had some interesting ideas, but
Mm.
yeah, no, I think the second one was the best one. But
The first one laid the groundwork, but
yeah, no, I think Guillermo del Toro made the second one, right? I'm
I
pretty
didn't.
sure he did. But yeah, I like I said, I thought it was good. I kind of wish they would have just brought back Wesley Snipes to play him in the MCU, but I understand why they don't. They want someone that's younger and not in jail for tax fraud, and although he's out now, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we'll see how that goes. 18 episodes. That'll cover a lot of ground.
Well, and I think that's the problem with some of these streaming shows is that they do make them so short that they try to jam in way too much story. Like I say, again, my issue with the Book of Boba Fett was I felt like the last episode seemed like it should have been like the next to last episode. There should have been like the wrap up to the whole story, and now you're like, okay, so what happened after this? And there's probably not going to be a sequel to the Book of Boba Fett
Wouldn't think so, but stranger things have happened.
because it ended terribly. I mean, it was pretty cool because I like the Annihilator droids. I like the Boba Fett riding in the Rancor. That's actually harkens all the way back to um, his first appearance in the Christmas special
Oh, the Christmas special.
because that's how he was introduced. Was
That
riding,
truly is special.
he was riding a creature in that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen it.
But they actually, Knights of the Republic, and other things, they've actually worked that into the lore that the Mandalorians were Beast Riders, because on, well, what is the, it's one of the planets that you're on in Knights of the Old Republic, where one of the moons is where all of the,
You're on Onderon.
yes, Onderon was known for the Beast Riders, and they showed that in the Clone Wars episode too.
Yeah, is the moon Duxon?
I,
Because that's the one where is it Freedon Nad is buried there? I think it's Freedon Nad. It's one of the Sith Lords. Because the current rulers are descendants of his. And yeah, there's a whole deal there. Like, you folks should really read the Old Republic comics. They're great. All kinds of crazy Sith lords and stuff in there. Like Naga Sado, who had his using his ship could use the Force to destroy a star.
Well, hell, even supposedly there's even a possibility that all of the rule of two was actually with Darth Bane just transferring his essence into.
Yeah, the Darth Bane books imply that because the books show him coming up through the ranks while the Sith had an army, and then he realized that it's stupid how they're dividing power, and there shouldn't be like a council of Sith lords. There should be a Sith Lord, and so he discovered another thing, a technique, and he didn't tell him what all it was going to do. He's like, it'll wipe out the Jedi, and it was going to, and it did. Uh, but he didn't tell him the other part was it was going to suck the souls out of them too and trap them in a thing, which I think comes up in one of the video games. What's the ones with your guy?
Oh, the Dark Forces.
Yeah, I think it's Dark.
The Jedi. There's also Jedi Outcast, and which is a continuation of it.
It's something. It's one of those because I think it's Kyle Katarn goes and he finds where their spirits are all locked in this thing, and yeah, that's all because of Darth Bane. And so he walks out of that unscathed because he knows it's coming, and then he takes an apprentice, and so the other two books are about. Well, I think I don't remember where it happens in the book, Jane, but so he trains the apprentice. He gets some kind of armor that basically makes him unstoppable, but it's killing him. And so eventually he learns the technique to transfer his essence into someone else. And there's something wrong with, I think it's his left hand, and his apprentice finally sees a moment to rise up and take him out. And during the fight, he starts doing the thing. And at the end of the fight, she walks away but has the same problem with her left hand, implying that he was able to do the spirit transfer. And if that's the case, then all the way up through Palpatine, it's just Darth Bane. So, or at least up until his master,
Plagueis.
Plagueis, because I don't know if Bane is able to make the jump there. If that's the case, so there's enough there in the books to imply that it could just be Darth Bane, but don't know if it is, and if it is, it ended with Palpatine.
See, why do people have a hard time following all this?
That was only from 3 novels. Those were written by the guy who wrote Knights of the Old Republic Part 1. And he also wrote the other book that I despise him for, which is a shame because he's a good author, the Darth Revan book. Because I think it was just a bunch of petty jealousy over the fact that Knights of the Old Republic 2, a lot of people said, had the much better storyline, even without an ending. So, because it wasn't just, like, the first one's got the good twist. The second one's got the metaphysical, like, do we really need the Force? What does the Force really mean? It asks some questions. Part 1's just like, yeah, should we take over the galaxy or not?
But
Part 2 is like, but why is the galaxy?
So did they ever explain that the Force is really just delegated to that galaxy? Because outside of that galaxy, the Force isn't a thing. That's why the Yuuzhan Vong are not affected by it.
I don't know. Because the Yuuzhan Vong originally were supposed to be the ancient Sith.
Oh, I didn't know.
Having left and somewhere along the way became separated from the Force. So at least that's what I've read before. So they abandoned that plan at some point. I don't know. They may or may not bring back the ancient Sith at some point. They've kind of hinted that they're going to, because they're going to steal everything else from the old EU. Why not use that too?
Honestly, I have no clue where anything's at with any movies or any.
Well, I know I've harped on this before, but if they just would have stuck with the old EU, right where things left off, there were plenty of bad guys, because there's one novel that starts back during. It's got to be, well, I think it's while Revan is in charge, or it's during like the Sith, like the Sith hyperspace war, thousands of years before that. And there are 2 ships loaded up with a metal that enhances Force powers. One of them, the Jedi, This Jedi Master goes on board one of them because his apprentice has fallen to the dark side and he's going to take him out. So one of them crash lands on this planet. The other one, the Jedi Master, like stabs the hyperdrive and turns it on, like stabs it with his lightsaber, then turns it on. So it starts skipping between hyperspace and real space. But because of relative velocity, it's moving forward in time quite a bit because it's maintaining its relative velocity in real space. So it's moving beyond the speed of light, you know. So it's going forward in time. And by the time they pop out, it's somewhere around like the new Jedi era. And so those Sith, they all buy the farm because the master, he falls to the dark side and kills all of them. But the other ship, like history just kind of forgets that ship until after the new Jedi Order era and someone comes and finds it. Well, the Sith that were on board intermarried with the local people, and so there's a whole planet of dark side Force users there that still know like Sith traditions and everything. And so they all come out and start, having to deal with the Jedi Order and everything. So there's a whole planet full of them. But did you ever see that episode of the Clone Wars where Anakin goes to that one planet where there's the father and the children? Well, that gets referenced a lot towards the end of in the last like 9-book series that kind of talks about all this. And Luke, I think, sees visions of that, and at the end realizes that the brother and sister, that now the Jedi and the Sith have replaced them, and because the sister ends up being some kind of weird monster thing, and they kill her, and the father and the brother are dead. And so now the Jedi and the Sith are taking their place to maintain the balance, because to kill her at the very end, Darth Krayt shows up because he's already a Sith Lord at that point. Because it's Asherad Het, and they don't identify him as such, but based on his descriptions, who it has to be. And so he and Luke confront the creature, who's like some Cthulhu-esque monster at this point, take her out, and they kind of nod and walk off, go their separate ways, knowing that now they're the balance. So, a bunch of weird stuff like that happens. That would have been nice if they would have picked up right there with the movies. But it's not like there's 800-page novels to base this stuff on, Jim.
No, I just wonder if anybody actually said that to her and be like, because like that would have been great during that interview. She's like, "Oh, there's not novels out there." And like,
if the interviewer would have been like, "Yeah, there are.
Yeah, there are.
Here's one of them. Read it." Yeah.
I mean,
we're just got the full board. Do some episodes just where we bitch about Star Wars, because that's what this seems to turn into every time.
It does. And the thing is that I talk about it in the review we just recorded for Warcraft. That when I wasn't playing Warcraft 2, my go-to game was TIE Fighter. It was my love for Star Wars was really cemented right there. I mean, obviously, I watched the recorded tapes that my dad had, and all that.
You're dealing with folks. For those of you who don't know, let's see. In our lifetimes, one of the original trilogy movies was released, right?
Yeah.
So we were both alive whenever Return of the Jedi came out, and so we have VHS copies. And we're the types of people that watch them through the 80s and 90s whenever everyone else is like, "Oh, Star Wars, that's dead, right?" We're like, "No, it's not." Like, we're still watching the original trilogy.
Yep. Well, and at some point, I don't know if I'd throw it on the unboxing old stuff or just but I have at least 5 or 6 different box sets of the original trilogy.
I have 2 that I can think of. I think I have one that's like the unaltered ones.
Because I've got the all the way back when they have the I want to say it's a CBS Fox copy, the original.
Yeah, mine that have that are probably ones that I copied from the video store. Which, for those of you too young to understand how this had to work, you needed 2 VCRs, You put your tape into one, you put your blank tape in the other, and you had to run all the wires so that the signal would go from the one with the tape you're going to copy to the one with the blank, which then ran to the TV so you can make sure it was working. And you play on one, record on the other, and next thing you know, you've got your own copy of the movie.
But every single copy that you make, or every you make it a copy of a VHS tape, the quality degrades
Yeah,
considerably.
yeah. Joe Bob Briggs, who I've mentioned a few times on here, in one of his interviews, he was talking about this. He's like, I could not think of a worse medium to ever watch anything on known to man than VHS tape. He's like, but somehow that's what sustained horror movies through the 80s, thanks to the video stores. But yeah, to Jim's point, if you rented a tape, that tape was made to have like 150 viewings before anything would happen to it. It was not the tape you would buy at like if you went to Walmart and bought the tape. If you go to Walmart, it'd be like $20. Those people were paying like $150 or more for those copies because they were higher quality tape and they could withstand it. Now then you're going and you're buying your cheap ass blank tape and you're recording it. You're recording it. That's one of the views, and you've only got so many before the picture starts to really degrade.
Funny story though, I bought, and this was fairly into the DVD age. I bought a brand new movie at Walmart. It was Slipstream with Mark Hamill. Speaking of stuff,
I think I have your copy of that, Jim.
and I watched it the first time. I unsealed it from the package, put it in the VCR, and I'm like, the hell's wrong with it? It looked like it had been watched 1,000 times. It was so crap. Um,
That might just be the source material on that one.
yeah. That's one we're gonna have to do a review on at some point. Slipstream. Another one we'll have to do one at some point is Robot Jocks. Just watch it again. Right now it's streaming on Tubi. We found it there, and it's sequel, or kind of sequel.
Yeah, kind of sequel.
Uh,
From Full Moon Entertainment. We could probably do a video just about them. They actually have their own streaming service. Full Moon, they do. Because I was watching all the subspecies movies on Amazon, and there's a fifth one that just came out, like in the last few months. And then it's a series that goes back to like 1989, I think.
Speaking of streaming services, I just saw an article talking that CNN is going to go back and try to do a streaming service again called CNN Max.
Ah, well, are they going to get Chris Wallace to be on that one too?
Maybe they'll get Brian Stelter back.
Hey, there we go. There's a blast from the past.
But no, I just saw that and I'm like, for the absolute, I mean, as fast as it went under, them trying to try it again.
Hey, didn't they let Don Lemon go recently?
I believe so.
Sorry, I think it is Don Lemon. I'm not intentionally mispronouncing his name, even though I'm making a joke about him. Get him back.
But I understand why they do it though too, because I don't see in the near future that cable, Dish Network, DirecTV.
Yeah, something's gonna give somewhere, because I know I'm not the only. I know my house isn't the only setup where we have cable and some of the streaming services, and we look at like, well, let's go straight to just the streaming. But to get everything we have on cable, we're paying the same or more that we're paying for cable. And so it's stupid to switch, but then it's like, but we feel, but then there's all these channels we don't watch on cable. So I don't know, because like Dad was looking at it today. There was one package that had most everything, but then he realized if we drop HBO, we're going to pay for HBO Max, which is going to put us back into basically what we're paying right now. So I don't know. Some of the streaming services need to die and be bought up by some of the others. Because at the moment, I'm pretty sure Netflix is still the king. And I don't think, even though half the movies on there now are Spanish movies and Indian movies, but some of them are entertaining. I keep watching them.
Yeah, no, I think it's a time where like
And
again,
my Asian zombie movies.
again, like the DirecTVs and Dish networks, I'm surprised that they still use the whole Dish format. I mean, I get keeping the Dish because that's great for people that are out in the country. But one is they could do like the HughesNet and include internet into their signals. And then on top of that, even They need to maybe even look at like an a la carte type format where you can purchase the channels that you want, and then
Well, I did actually see something related to all this.
what's that?
I guess Netflix is finally going to stop their disc delivery system.
Damn it!
They're going to say, if I understood it correctly, it was just the headline. I really should have read the article. It sounds like if you're still signed up, they're just going to send you 10 random discs in the finale. Like, here you go. Thanks for being a loyal customer.
And just let you keep them.
Yeah, I think so.
So, do you remember what the first movie you rented on Netflix was?
No. I don't remember the first movie I read on Netflix. I do remember the first DVD I watched, though. I'm pretty sure it's the first DVD I watched. It was John Carpenter's Vampires, and I had to watch it on a computer because I didn't have a DVD player yet.
I still have the copy of my first DVD that I ever bought, and it's an embarrassment that I bought it.
I can tell you the first one. I can tell you the first one I bought like in a store because I don't remember. I was one of those fools that signed up for Columbia House because I did the math and figured out how to make it all work to come out ahead. And so I got like 20 movies all at once for like $10. But I just don't remember if I did that or if I bought this first movie. But the first one I remember buying was G.I. Joe, the animated movie. And Bobby Carr was there with me. Back to my house. We watched it like 4 times in a row. So, which is more than any human being should watch that movie.
And the funny thing is that even like the very early DVDs, a lot of times you sit there on the menu for a little bit to see if there's any Easter eggs that would come scrolling through the the animated menu or whatever. No, so the first DVD I ever purchased was Dungeons and Dragons. I still have my copy of it because it came in a cardboard sleeve instead of like the plastic cases and all the stuff coming now. The first movie I rented on Netflix through the mail-in service.
Oh, you meant that way. No, I never rented any through the mail-in. I only did I rented them because here in town we had the video store. So
no, I did the whole Netflix thing, and the very first one I ever rented was because of Jane and Silent Bob Strike Back. It's a movie that they mentioned to Ben Affleck multiple times.
Yep.
And if you don't know, it's because Ben Affleck was the bomb in Phantoms.
That's right. I've only watched Phantoms once.
It
was about 20 years ago.
That's about all you need to watch it. It's okay. It's about time to probably get it back out and watch it again at some point. But
could be.
That'd be great if Netflix.
Is Rosario Dawson in that?
I don't know. You have to look on IMDb.
Or not Rosario Dawson, Rose McGowan.
I don't know.
I think she is. I'll check it out sometime. I don't think Rosario Dawson's in Clerks 2.
No.
That's where she joins the View Askew universe. Also in Clerks 3. Which, if you guys like those movies and haven't seen Clerks 3, I thought it was decent. It's definitely a conclusion to a lot of things. It's interesting. It seemed to be an attempt at a real movie, as opposed to a joke fest or Kevin Smith spending too much time smoking the weed and thinking he's funny at 3 a.m. when he's not. Like, I like Kevin Smith, but a couple of his last movies, like, it's clear that it's stoner humor and only works when you're stoned. So sometimes maybe.
No, I gotta say, when I got my first DVD player, I rented it, or not rented it, I did the rent-to-own at American Rental here in town, which is now a Mexican restaurant.
Yes, and before rent-to-own, it was a drugstore at some point, right? Or grocery store.
I think it was a grocery store.
Convenience store, something.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I did the rent-to-own for my DVD player. I still got, no, I sold that. I did sell it finally. But it was a Pioneer unit. It was not cheap either. Early DVD units were like you're buying computers. Not really. I mean, it's like $400 or $500.
Something like that.
And that was a good unit too. I mean, I used that for the longest time. Damn it, quit yawning.
Yeah, like I said, I think it was John Carpenter's Vampires, and I had to watch it on a computer. And because I remember I was frustrated trying to turn off the captions, because I just wanted to see the movie. Then, Yeah, I don't know what the first thing I watched on actual Netflix was.
Speaking of John Carpenter, one of the other comic book reviews I watched was The Thane. There's a comic book series.
Yeah, there's a few. There's a few continuations of the movie. There's a video game and there's a comic book series.
Well, it gets kind of ridiculous towards the end because the Thane becomes like sentient and like kind of merges like its personality with the people it's merged with.
Well, the thing was always sentient.
Well, I mean, it becomes like the person, and then
Yeah.
it's like because in one of the stories, it's like it starts wanting to it wants to burn down the like this in a civilization wants to burn down the town because of the competition from the other. Then they're like, wait, it's not can't really be competition because they're all the same person. They're all the same thing.
Well, okay. In the movies, plural, if you pay close attention, I'm pretty sure the parts are all acting independently. I'm pretty sure they're not acting in unison. Like once it separates or once it takes over someone else, that's another thing. It's a different creature.
Yeah.
You know, they can merge, but they're up here. They're not like telepathically
Yeah,
communicating.
poor Kurt Russell's character is in almost every one of these comics. Like they just won't let him die.
Well, yeah. I mean, McCready's got to make it through, assuming he's not a thing at the end of the first one.
Well, according to the comics, he's not.
Well, there's movie theory that Keith David's character is, and it's all this is spoilers for a movie from the '80s, folks. Here we go. At the very end, he shows back up. He wasn't there for the big final battle. Okay, and McCready hands him a bottle, and he takes a drink from it. But the thing is, why would McCready have a bottle of his liquor right there? The only bottles they had were full of gasoline to burn the whole place down, and they used the liquor bottles. That's why McCready kind of chuckles, because Childs doesn't show that he just drank gasoline, you know, and that's why McCready knows, like, I'm fucked, because it's another thing. That's what some people's interpretation of the end of the movie. The other is that neither of them is the thing, and they just sit there and freeze to death.
Yeah, it's again definitely worth a watch of the comic books because they go all over the place.
I've seen some videos talking about them.
They go
and
kind of
video games.
Yeah.
But
There we go. There we go. We went way off. That was not on our topic list to go over.
no, and I only had one other thing on the topic list. So I'm going to try to address really briefly now. So on Netflix the other day, I watched this Bob Ross special, and it's about his life and his legacy, and it shows a lot of things before he became a painter, like he was in the Air Force. He was not some grizzled Vietnam veteran like people like to believe. No, he was an Air Force guy. And he became a painter like almost right after he was out of the Air Force because he'd been in Alaska and saw this scenic beauty and everything. And he actually took inspiration from another guy that had a TV show like what he eventually had. And really, he went and talked to the guy, learned a lot from him about how to speed paint and some of his techniques and everything. And then began incorporating it. And then he and some partners created Bob Ross Inc. and started the show on PBS. His partners, apparently, this is what the documentary says, this isn't me saying this, just to be crystal clear, were former CIA people and recorded all their conversations. And there was a lot of people that wouldn't appear in this special because they were afraid of being sued by those people. Again, I'm not making those claims, that's in the special. So, yeah, it talks about like after, he had an affair with one of them supposedly, and then he had his son. His son can paint just like he could. Like it showed some of the stuff he's done. He's every bit as good an artist as his dad. And he'd bring his son on the show sometimes, to demonstrate that he could actually teach other people, and everything. But after he passed away, like the ones that controlled Bob Ross Inc., like started suing everybody, trying to get control of everything. And ultimately they control his name, his likeness, everything. And his son has nothing. And so, like the way Bob Ross had it set up before he died, there was a corporation that's supposed to control parts of it, and his son controlled 49%, and this other guy controlled 51%. And because presumably at the time it was set up was when his son was younger, and he never amended it. And so the other guy just like sold him out, and old Bob Jr. Never saw a dime. Meanwhile, the other people are making millions of dollars a year on it. So like all the Bob Ross crap you see everywhere, like that's some people just milking his name. That
So what you're saying is you probably shouldn't be investing in Bob Ross.
I don't know if there's anything to it. Well, oh yeah, you as a person
Yeah,
probably.
like the Chia Pet Bob Ross.
That was actually specifically shown in there when they were talking about this. That's funny you mentioned that. But yeah, you should watch the special and come to your own conclusions.
Of course, of course.
Because those people initially declined to be in it, then they issued a statement saying, well, we deny some of these facts, and so you're taking the word of some people who obviously have potential axe to grind. So watch it, see it for yourself. But his son and this one other guy, and they said he's in Muncie, and I think they mean Muncie, Indiana. Still teach people how to paint like Bob Ross, and they both can easily duplicate what Ross was doing, as far as technique and everything. And so, yeah, at some point I'd like to go to the Bob Ross Museum in Indianapolis, because I think that guy might be the guy that runs it, so I'd like to see it. And unfortunately, I don't remember the gentleman's name. But
the only museum that I can think of right off the top of my head of famous people around here is the Red Skelton Museum.
It was the Red Skelton Museum in Vincennes.
Oh yeah, Gus Grissom.
The Gus Grissom Museum, the Kurt Vonnegut. I don't know if it's a museum or if it's his personal library or something. I thought it was in Bloomington, but I think it's actually in Indianapolis. And then Bob Ross Museum. Then there's some stuff to do with Lincoln, because he initially lived here in Indiana. I'm kind of surprised. I'd be surprised if there wasn't something for Michael Jackson or Axl Rose, because they're both from Indiana. Although Axl Rose doesn't seem to have a very high opinion of Indiana, so he equated Lafayette, which is where he grew up, to a concentration camp. And I mean, I like Axl Rose as a singer and a musician, but I've been to Lafayette. It's not a concentration camp, folks. Like that is extreme hyperbole. There's a Steve McQueen museum. He's from Indiana. I don't remember where that is exactly. Or not Steve McQueen. Oh, it's going to bother me now.
Well, you looked at
stall for a second here, Jim. I got to try to think of a movie this guy was in. He's not in very many movies.
Well, that'll narrow it down.
Yeah, I know. I'm just having hope that he was actually in this movie.
Oh, there you go.
James Dean is who I'm talking about, not Steve McQueen. Yeah, he's from Northern Indiana.
Well,
because I drove through there when I was helping Chris move to Michigan, so it's got to be somewhere between like along I-69 from Indianapolis to Lansing. I don't remember if it's north or south of Fort Wayne, so I have to look that up.
Well, I think we've rambled on enough. I don't know that there's anything else. We were trying to keep this to a shorter episode.
Yeah, that didn't quite happen.
That's all right.
So yeah, anyway, so if you're ever going to come to Indiana, like hit us up. We'll try to tell you what these places are and who these people are if you don't know. But yeah, that's about it for this week. Hopefully you'll look for another Ahsoka episode. Once that comes out, we watch it and we get around to it. Might not be right on top of the day it comes out, because we're going to want to have Owen watch it with us, and we'll want him to give his thoughts afterwards. So Owen's not here every Tuesday, so I don't even know it's coming out Tuesdays. Is it coming out on Tuesdays?
I'm assuming it's going to be on Tuesday.
We'll have to check that out too.
Yep.
So anyway, I'm assuming if you're listening to this on YouTube, you can still like, share, and subscribe and all that stuff. If you can, we always appreciate it. If you can't, well, the thought that counts, I guess.
Well, I'm sure you still can share it in some capacity or like it in some capacity.
Yeah, I would think so. I really have to log in under my name on YouTube and find the podcast section, see how it looks, how the interface looks. I'm going to do that before the next episode, so I don't look like a fool here at the end. But luckily, it's at the end where people probably stop listening.
Yep. Well, I'm going to say, and if nothing else, you can always go on to our formerly Twitter, now X page, at Real Geek Cabal.
Yeah.
You can also go onto our Facebook page, which is just Geek Cabal, and comment on the memes that I try to post there, and I also try to post whenever we release a new video out there.
Yep.
So, besides that, again, tell us how we're doing. If you like our ramblings and anything that we talked about that you want us to elaborate more on.
Yeah, or if anything adjacent to those topics, like we talked about Warcraft 2, like are there other older computer games? World of Warcraft, even though I never played it. The Warcraft movie?
I haven't seen it.
I have. It wasn't terrible.
Okay, well, that's about how movies are now.
So I guess it's a good thing I didn't ask any questions. So how does this plot compare to the one to the movie?
I do not know.
But depending on what we've got for the next episode, we might start branching out into some of the other things that we wanted to do, like side stuff. We might start incorporating them here if we don't have a lot of the other stuff we're talking about. It's related, it'd be like with the movies, we've talked for a while about a segment that we were tentatively going to call Diamond in the Rough, where we find movies that are bad or not so great, but that have some redeeming quality.
Like Robot Jocks.
Or a few others. I have the first movie in mind that I want to talk about, but or that like in a different director's hands maybe might have been okay or better than okay. Things like, or that like they had a good plot, like the effects just weren't there, things like that. Or maybe real crap like Highlander 2. Which I shouldn't say that. Highlander 5 should now be the definitive crap part of that series, but Highlander 2 is a goddamn masterpiece compared to Highlander 5. But and if you've ever seen Highlander 2, like that should give you an idea of just how shitty Highlander 5 is. But things like that, we might start kind of incorporating those when we have weeks that there's just not much to talk about otherwise. So let us know what you think about that, if you would, please. Hopefully, maybe, kind of, sort of.
Interaction.
Yeah. And if for some reason you don't want to do it on YouTube, although for obviously personal reasons for growing the channel, we would prefer you do, but just in case you don't want to, there are the other avenues Jim mentioned, if you prefer those.
Yes, you can always message us on, I believe, on either app.
I know for sure you can on
Facebook,
because I get messages there. And
yeah, we even met a fan.
Yes, we did.
So that was fun.
So, But yeah, so check us out on there. Thank you for listening. And I don't know, Jim, we got any kind of words of wisdom for the good folks here?
No. Usually after an hour or so of talking, I've kind of ran out of funny quips and things to say. But
yeah,
just thanks for listening, and catch you on the flip side.
Yeah, we didn't talk about Star Trek, so I can't go with Live Long and Prosper. We did mention Star Wars, though, so may the Force be with you.
Always.
Always.